Well, good evening. Welcome to all the friends and family of Kathy, and we're here to celebrate her life. And as you can see behind me, there's a slide show that will go on through the entire proceedings. We're grateful that we're able to assemble here today and remember her, and to give our love and our condolences to Wally and Patty and those that of the family. So thank you for being here. I'm Bishop Ottoboni. I'm the Bishop of the Olympia 4th Ward, which meets in this building. And I am Scott and Tammy's bishop, as well as the grandkids. They've asked me to conduct today, and the program will be specifically laid out by Scott, and it's mostly family interaction here, and we hope you enjoy and can remember Kathy's life. So we're going to begin with an opening prayer by Tara Spencer. Afterwards, we're going to have an opening song called All of the Stars, and that will be by Michaela, Ariana, Olivia, and Abigail, and they'll be accompanied by Callie Goldsby. So we'll just go to that point.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for the opportunity to meet tonight and celebrate the life of an amazing woman most of us knew as MaMaw. Please allow the sadness and the tears to subside and pass soon so that we can be filled with peace and comfort knowing that she is pain-free and she's with thee. We miss her, we love her, and we'll always remember her. Please be with those that are participating in the program tonight. We are grateful for their presence tonight and always in our lives. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Take your hand.
Well, I think Grandma's smiling now, isn't she? That was just wonderful. And now we get to hear from Michaela Key, who's going to give some thoughts on her grandma, after which Amazing Grace will be played by Ariana Key. And Scott was telling me this was something that Kathy specifically wanted played at her memorial. And then we'll have some thoughts by Scott. So we'll go to that point.
Okay. Hello. So I want to share some scriptures first, and Romans 7:47, or 7:47 first. But charity is the pure love of Christ, and it endureth forever, and whoso found possessed of it, and the last day it shall be well with them. And one more. And I am filled with charity, which is everlasting love. Wherefore, all children are like unto me. Wherefore, I love little children with a perfect love, and they are all alike and partakers of salvation. My MaMaw was a very loving person, and she showed that love many different ways, and I looked up to her so much. It says that all children are alike unto me, and all children loved her, and she's just a happy person, and she loved everybody. And the reason she told me she loved me was she told me she loved me all the time, every single time. And I knew she meant it because she said it with like pure love. And another thing she did was when we'd like walk up to her or like see her, if we hadn't seen her in a couple of days, she'd walk up to us and give us a really big hug and whisper that she loves us, and it just made my day. And she'd always listen to us, everything we had to say, whether it didn't have any meaning to her or anything. She put up with me and my sisters, and trust me, that's not easy. And she did everything for us. She made us when we were running over to her house all the time, which is really fun, and she'd make sure we had something to do or that we weren't bored. There's so many things to do at her house, and she supported anything we did. For instance, almost every single soccer game I had, she'd come to all of them and cheer me on, and she's my biggest fan. And before every game, we'd look into the stands and we'd see all our parents, and I'd see my grandma. Her bright orange jacket, ready to cheer me on. And I know she's still watching over me, and she loves me, and I love her so much, and I can't wait to see her someday and maybe discuss it.
Kathy Lou Large was born at Fort Sanders Hospital in Knoxville, Tennessee on May 18, 1951 to Charles and Ann Large. Kathy grew up in a close-knit middle-class family with her parents and her older sister Patty in the Mount Olive community of Knoxville. Kathy lived an active life as a child. Kathy's parents worked hard and the family lived a comfortable and relatively stable life throughout Kathy's early years. However, tragedy struck early in Kathy's life. She was 12 when her father suddenly died of a heart attack. This made things difficult at times for the family, but they persevered. As I grew up and developed relationships with my mom, her sister Patty, and their mother, my granny, it became evident that the three of them were very close and remained that way throughout their lives. I imagine this was due in large part to their dealing with the adversity that came as a result of the death of my grandfather. As a freshman at Young High School, Kathy was courted by a handsome junior named Wally Key. They dated for a while and quickly fell in love. Shortly after graduating from high school, Wally enlisted in the Air Force. Knowing he could not let Kathy get away, Wally requested her hand in marriage. Wally and Kathy were married on August 31, 1968, at the Valley Grove Baptist Church in Knoxville, Tennessee. Wally was 19 and Kathy was 17 at the time. Many of you know that Tammy and I were also married in our teens. Although in these two particular instances, early marriages worked out remarkably well, this is the point in time when I turn to my daughters and encourage them to do as I say, not as I did. Wally and Kathy were first stationed in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, living there around a year. In 1968, the Air Force saw fit to send them to Hawthorne, Nevada, the site of the Hawthorne Naval Ammunition Depot. Shortly after arriving at Hawthorne, my parents discovered that they were pregnant. The United States was in the middle of the Vietnam War, and Dad was often deployed for months at a time. So my mom went back to Tennessee for the last months of her pregnancy and delivery. On February 1, 1971, I was born at East Tennessee Baptist Hospital in Knoxville, Tennessee. A local doctor named Jim Bell, who later became my uncle, marrying my Aunt Patty, delivered me. Mom and Dad enjoyed their time in Hawthorne, living there until 1978. They integrated well into the military community, became avid golfers, played competitive softball, and established friendships which carried on throughout their lives. Hawthorne was a very small town, not much more than a military base. In fact, I have early memories of driving to Carson City, about an hour away, just to go shopping. Cognizant of the limited opportunities for kids in such a small town, my parents sought a transfer to a base within a larger community. This point emphasizes a theme that pervaded my entire childhood. Whenever my parents made important decisions, their first concern was always how it affected me. Mom and Dad ultimately chose Hill Air Force Base in Ogden, Utah. Ogden was a decent-sized city with a population of around 100,000 or so, and relatively close to Salt Lake City. We moved in 1978, the summer before my second grade year. We settled in a small suburb called Washington Terrace, and eventually my parents stretched their finances to buy a house within walking distance of the schools I would attend. Mom worked various clerical office and management jobs during my school years. One of her jobs was at the local cable company, which provided great benefits during my youth. This was the early 80s, and cable TV was a new concept at the time. Those of you with a little gray hair can remember the days before cable, when our options on the TV were channels 2, 4, or 5. I recall being one of the first kids in the neighborhood to receive a cable box that allowed us to get 30 or 40 channels, including all the movie channels. I instantly became a pretty popular kid. As cable boxes and remotes progressed, we always had the latest and greatest. My mom would bring home posters and memorabilia from MTV, ESPN, and other TV networks. In fact, my mom was invited to attend the launch party for the Disney Channel in 1983, and also had the opportunity to meet many of the MTV VJs that I was watching on TV when that network started. My parents continually worked hard and sacrificed to make our home the destination house in the neighborhood. We were conveniently located to the schools, had plenty of space, a game room for a basement, and a big yard. My parents' level of tolerance was well off the charts, and they continually dealt with the routine shenanigans of me and my friends. My parents developed close relationships with many of my friends, and my friends seemed to always feel comfortable in our home. The fridge and cupboard were always stocked, the doors were open, and the house was filled with warmth. In fact, it was not uncommon for my friends to hang out at the house without me even being there. My mom would tell stories about coming home for lunch or at the end of the day, and being greeted with a "How you doing, Mrs. Key?" from a few of my friends kicked back in front of the TV enjoying a bowl of mac and cheese. As a youth, I was obviously unaware of the many sacrifices my parents made. I was an active boy, playing several sports and engaged in many activities. However, I never doubted that my parents would be in the stands for my games, parent nights, or other recognition in school. I can count on a single hand the number of times I participated in an extracurricular activity without my parents there to support me. For a significant part of my childhood, I think I assumed my parents' employers scheduled the workday around Little League sports. Of course, I now have a better appreciation of the actual work and sacrifice involved in devoting your life to being an active and involved parent. My mom spent her 20s and 30s being a Little League mom. Most weeknights were spent at the ballpark, and most weekends revolved around my athletic events. Hauling me around was never viewed as a burden by my mom. She seemed fully cognizant of the fact that childhood is brief. Kids age much faster than we would like, and then one day all we will have to hold on to are the relationships established and the memories created. Prior to my junior year, my dad was informed that he was up for a 3-year tour that would require the entire family to move to the Philippines, as I recall. At that time, my life revolved around high school sports. I was a pretty good athlete, playing multiple sports at the local high school. I am sure I would have thought the world would stop spinning and the sun would not come up in the morning were I compelled to change schools at that point in my life. I believe my parents enjoyed the military life at the time and would have continued with an extended military career were it not for me. However, in lieu of uprooting our family, my parents put my interests at the forefront of their decision-making process. Instead of staying in the Air Force and accepting the 3-year tour, my dad retired at the age of 39 in 1988, having honorably served his country for 20 years. This decision allowed me to finish what was a wonderful high school experience. Looking back, I doubt my parents ever seriously considered my being pulled away from an environment that brought me so much joy. My parents were truly each other's best friend. They were married just over 46 years. Their relationship served as a great model growing up. Living the military life, my parents spent a significant time away from each other. Speaking from experience, I know this is difficult on relationships. At the onset of their marriage, as teenagers, Mom and Dad went out on their own into the real world and were forced to succeed or fail together. Although I had no alternate perspective from which to relate, I was always sure that my parents were truly dedicated to each other's happiness. I never for a moment doubted the joy and stability of my parents' relationship. A funny quirk for me growing up was that I can honestly say that I never saw my parents raise their voices with each other. I can appreciate that they must have had disagreements while I was growing up, but the discretion to sort out those issues outside my presence must have taken extensive effort and patience. I am sure that at times there were tough decisions to be made, and sleepless nights with worries about money, health, or a particularly difficult situation that was created by the indiscretion of a teenage son. However, during my childhood, my parents were careful not to let their struggles inhibit my childhood experience. I grew up somewhat like Pollyanna, believing that all was right in the world, and that things always have a way of working out for the best. I take pride in carrying forward this optimistic view that was planted and nurtured by my mom and dad. There are not many branches in the Key family tree. Dad was an only child, and my mom had just one sister, Patty. Patty moved out here just a few years after my parents, buying a house on the same street as my parents. Despite being separated by distance for long periods of time, Patty and my mom remained close through the good times and the bad. My mom and my aunt have each had struggles and dealt with the loss of loved ones. They've also felt great joy. Being able to share those experiences with a sister who is also your best friend was invaluable to my mom, and I imagine also to Patty. My mom was also very close to her mother, a lady I came to know as my granny. My granny died in 1988, just before I started my senior year in high school. She was a phenomenal grandparent. She pretty much let me get away with anything. By the time I was a teenager, Granny was pretty much retired. Her primary duty when I was in Tennessee was to entertain me. I enjoyed many summers in Tennessee hanging out with my granny. As a teenager, I was amazed that this 60-year-old plus woman had such a fascination with baseball, the Cosby Show, fast food, and rap music. It seemed a little odd at the time, but it worked out great for me. As you might imagine, I later learned that these fascinations were only temporary in nature, and happened to coincide precisely with my being in town. Of course, one of the greatest pleasures I've experienced in my life has been watching my mother enjoy an almost identical relationship with my children. At the time Michaela was born, we were living in Lacey, but my parents were still living in Tennessee. After I graduated from high school and my dad retired from the Air Force, Mom and Dad had moved back to Knoxville to care for a few ailing relatives. My parents purchased an historic home built during the early 20th century, a home which was previously owned by my great-grandmother, MaMaw Wallace. The home was the product of many childhood memories that I can still recall. By the time my parents returned to Tennessee in 1989, my mom's Aunt Hazel, my granny's sister, required significant care on a daily basis. My mom spent countless hours providing care to Aunt Hazel. However, by the time Michaela was born, Aunt Hazel had passed away. Michaela was born in August of 1999, and Mom and Dad came out to visit just a few weeks later. I vividly recall the first time my mom laid her eyes on Michaela. I had always thought it was likely my parents might move out to Washington at some point once they were convinced Tammy and I had settled down. After watching my mom rock Michaela to sleep that first night, I was confident the deal was sealed. Sure enough, about a year later, my parents had buttoned up all their affairs in Tennessee, which was no small task, and headed west again, buying a home in Lacey, just a few minutes from where we lived at the time. I'm sure I felt grateful at the time, but could not, in my wildest dreams, have imagined the blessings that would come from having my parents live so close. Let me digress a little bit. Southerners have a reputation for being simple. One thing that is not simple in the South is picking out a name for kinfolk. Growing up in Utah, most of my friends had grandparents with logical monikers. For example, Tammy's grandmas were Grandma Knudsen and Grandma Standard, the last names of her parents. Not so simple in the South. I grew up with a MaMaw, a granny, a grandmother, and Mom and Pop Key, who were my great-grandparents. I must say that as a young boy, I was at times not clear as to why everybody in the family called my 80-plus-year-old great-grandmother Mom. On occasion, I also had to provide some clarification with my friends. No, that 80-year-old lady is not my mom, she's my dad's grandmother. Following Southern tradition, we all decided my parents would pick the names by which they would be known. They chose MaMaw and Papa. While I felt the name was a perfect fit, what I did not know at the time was that MaMaw would be the name by which my mom would be known in this community. I dare say that many of you could pick MaMaw out of the lineup well before you learned the name Kathy Key. That certainly was my mom's preference. As you may gather from the pictures flashing behind me, my mom cherished the role of MaMaw. Not only did she cherish the role, she amplified the role. She took every opportunity to thrive in that role, continually providing love and support to my children with the same zeal and vigor she had provided to me some 3 decades earlier. My mom also loved being known as MaMaw, so much so that she has the license plate to prove it. I was talking with Ariana last night and she reminded me that MaMaw's house always had a bowl of Red Hots, the little red sugar-coated candy. Most of the time when we picked up our girls from MaMaw's house, they insisted on packing a bag of Red Hots for the 20-minute car ride home. In fact, our girls often referred to my mom as the Red Hot MaMaw. Being a parent requires a lot of work. Given the fact that Tammy and I have 4 daughters, we embrace the "it takes a village to raise a child" mantra. Like many of you, we rely on carpools, friends, and some accommodations from understanding coaches, teachers, and other leaders. Without a doubt, my parents have been the primary crutch upon which we have relied as we raise our girls. As an example, until Michaela and Ariana reached babysitting age, virtually every date night for which Tammy and I could partake in was a result of a sleepover at MaMaw and Papa's. Our kids look forward to our date nights, encouraging us to go out so they could spend quality time with MaMaw and Papa. More comforting, Mom and Dad expressly, and on occasion forcefully, encouraged us to leave the kids with them. We never felt like it was a burden for them to watch the kids, and our kids always had a great time at MaMaw and Papa's house. Early on, my mom made special going to MaMaw and Papa bags so that our girls would always have an overnight packed and ready to go at the spur of the moment. In fact, the only time MaMaw and Papa were unavailable is when they made their annual 2-week trek to Hoover, Alabama to watch the Southeastern Conference baseball tournament. My mom truly loved crafting with the girls, and never met a craft she could not master. Mom and the girls would do all kinds of projects. In addition to crafts, the girls loved giving MaMaw a makeover. I think there are a couple pictures circling behind me that highlight just a few of those times. Of course, MaMaw's home had a dedicated bedroom for the girls, fully decorated and stocked with toys, clothes, and sufficient sleeping quarters. In fact, in recent years, as the older girls wanted a little more privacy and space, my mom offered up her craft room as a second bedroom. My parents also accompanied us on many family vacations to Disneyland, the Oregon coast, Vancouver, etc. I often say traveling with kids is rarely relaxing. It's more like a workout. Lots of effort and enjoyable for the most part, but certainly peppered with pain and angst at times. It's exhausting, but also breeds family bonding and memories that are priceless. I must say that I was continually amazed with my parents' eagerness to accompany us on pretty much any jaunt undertaken. I've learned that having an active grandparent is one of those situations where everybody truly wins. Our kids love it, we love it, and MaMaw and Papa loved it. MaMaw and Papa take the girls on adventures that they would never have done with Tammy and myself. Let's face it, finding free time as a parent is challenging. Don't get me wrong, I love spending time with my kids. However, selfishly, I admit that on rare occasions, I get a little giddy when my parents volunteer to play the role of parent. Really, MaMaw? You want to drive to Everett and take the girls to their soccer game on Saturday? Sure, I guess the kids can spend a couple days at your house and you can take them to the pet parade and the craft fair. Here's a true example of the test of the level of my mom's devotion as a grandparent. MaMaw would, of her own free will, routinely volunteer to take our preschool-aged daughters to a friend's birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese, Charlie's Safari, or something of the like. Not only that, but on occasion my parents would offer to carpool, picking up other kids to make sure they got to the birthday party. Nothing against Chuck E. Cheese and Charlie's Safari, but what sane person does that voluntarily? My parents' attendance at soccer games, piano recitals, and church functions and school assemblies became somewhat of an expectation in the community. Many of you have been fortunate enough to develop a relationship with my parents. If Tamara and I showed up without my mom, it was quite common to get a "Where is MaMaw?" inquiry. I imagine that question may be a little more difficult for me to ponder for a little while. As an only child, I cannot appreciate the challenges of developing your own identity in a multi-sibling household. My mom was very sensitive to this issue and went out of her way to make sure that she spent quality time with each of our girls, doing things that that particular girl enjoyed. As an example, my mom created a tradition which became one of the highlights of the year for our girls. Around the time of each girl's birthday, as that particular girl's birthday present, MaMaw and Papa would set aside an entire day to spend only with that particular child. The day always included shopping, MaMaw buying whatever was picked out and Papa carrying the bags to the car, lunch at a restaurant of the girl's choosing, and usually another fun special activity that that child picked out. The perspective that my daughter received in developing a close and active relationship with her MaMaw is something for which I am truly grateful. Like myself, each of them has a special bond with my mom, a bond that can never be broken. Many of you have sent our family heartfelt messages expressing sympathy and highlighting how great it was to have my mom on the sidelines, in the bleachers, or in the auditorium during various events. We're grateful that you care enough to express those thoughts, and hope you're cognizant of the blessings that our family continues to receive in developing such wonderful relationships. My mom lived a blessed life, and blessed the lives of those with whom she came into contact. She served as a beacon of light and joy during her time on earth. You know, death is hard and appears unjust. However, in this instance, I realize the pain and sadness resulting in the separation created by my mom's death are only present because of the joy her experience brought to each of us while she was here on earth. For if we had not experienced the joy, there would be no sadness. As I stand before you today, I am truly grateful for the joy we all experienced in knowing my mom, the strength of the sadness her parting has created, and the memories we carry forward.
Thanks, Scott. It's obvious that Kathy was loved and that she loved a great deal. And she was dedicated to her grandkids and to her son. And it's been a wonderful time together. Thank you, Ariana, for amazing grace. I can just see Kathy probably standing behind you, smiling, saying, "You're doing really well, honey. You're doing really well." And she did. And we appreciate the thoughts by Michaela. Thank you. We're going to have a closing song, "You Are My Sunshine," again by Michaela, Ariana, Olivia, and Abigail, accompanied again by Callie Gouldsby. And you might listen to some change up in some of the words that will be sung. After which our closing prayer will be by Max Stander. I would also like you to know that afterwards there's our Relief Society sisters have put a little spread together in the cultural hall that's right behind this curtain. I will let you know that they brought lots of cookies. Some of those cookies have nuts in them. So ask the sisters maybe which ones are and which ones aren't if you have an allergy to the nuts. So we'll have that closing song now and then a closing prayer. Thank you.
My sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. You are MaMaw, will always love you. We love the times we spend with you. You are always in our hearts forever. We will love you forever, this is true. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Your mac and cheese fries are very favorite. We love to snuggle, you love us to sleep. You are so loving, always caring for us. Thank you, MaMaw, for loving me. Thank you, MaMaw, for loving me.
Our Father in heaven, we're indeed thankful for this fine program in memory of Kathy Key. We're thankful for Scott and his loving remarks, and we're thankful for Kathy and Wally, the way they raised him. We're thankful for the Key family, and we ask you to bless them, that they'll have thy spirit to be with them, that they'll be comforted in this time of need. We ask thee, Father in heaven, to help us to keep in mind the charity which Makeda talked about, that we can show our charity as Kathy showed her charity and pure love. We ask thee, Father in heaven, to comfort all of us and help us remember the good times and all of the kind deeds and thoughtfulness of Kathy. We ask thee especially to bless Wally at this time, that he will be able to remember all the good times and appreciate the time that he spent with Kathy as a gift from our Father in heaven. We're thankful for thy Son, Jesus Christ, and his sacrifice for us and for his example, and help us all to be more like Kathy and Jesus in the way we treat one another in our kindness and thoughts. And we ask thee at this time to bless refreshments. We thank thee for all those people who provided them. We ask thee also to bless all of us who are here today and those who are associated with Kathy, that we will keep her in our memory and have good thoughts of her and be able to put her kind acts and the things that she did, that we might remember the things that she did for others, and that we might apply those things in our lives and make this world a better place. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
We can adjourn to enjoy each other's company. Thank you.